give it to you, and I hope it inspires you the way it has inspired others. I'd like to start with a prayer, please. Heavenly Father, we are so grateful for gathering here together under your house. Please be with us. Send your holy angels to guard and protect us, and give us our testimony so that we can inspire others. In your precious name, Jesus, I pray. Amen.
Amen.
So as you can see,
Yeah, let's get him some mics here.
hello.
Hello.
So I'm going to let Cole start out the intro to our trip down to Washington.
All right, so we were at Grayling for church service, and once church service got out, we had potluck, so we quickly got something to eat and packed our bags in the van. Talked to Pastor for a little bit, had prayer, and got on the road. It was about 13 hours, 14 hours. So we took toll roads the whole way, which made it a lot easier. Had to stop for gas several times. But we just kept driving. We knew where we were going, and it was supposed to snow. It was supposed to be bad weather. And we were, kind of gauged for that as good as we could have been. And we prayed about it, and we didn't have any bad weather the whole way there. Me and Pastor switched out. He drove for a good distance. And then, kind of once we got near Pittsburgh, I took over. And then when we got near Maryland, he took back over because I didn't want to get lost. Going through Pittsburgh was a lot. Especially because I've never really driven through too big of a city, but as long as you just stay on that toll road, you'll be all right going to Washington. And then we got to where we were staying. It was an Airbnb in Maryland.
Before you tell too much about that, when I looked at the weather, it was terrible. It was terrible for a week and a half out going in. It was just terrible, terrible, terrible. And I thought, wow, Lord, normally, I would, if it was just for a vacation for me, I'd cancel right now. I'd just cancel and say, forget it. No. But because it was for a mission trip, and because we were going to go pass out the great controversies, Satan just hates that book, and he hates for it to get out, and he's going to make everything miserable as possible to make sure you don't do it. We said, Lord, if we shouldn't go, help these guys to get weak-kneed, say, oh, the weather's too bad, Pastor. We're canceling. We're not going to go. So that was my prayer. If we're meant to go, help them to be on board. If they are not meant to go, please help them to cancel out. You know what? When I checked with them, they didn't even bat an eye. Now we're going to go through with this thing, and honestly, I felt like we were going through the Red Sea. I honestly did, because the storm was terrible on the map. The weather forecast was just terrible, and we just went, like Cole said, straight through. No problem, hardly any moisture at all. It's like the Lord opened the way through, and I said, okay, this is a token indication that God is in the mix in this thing, and I expect some miracles on the other side. So it's pretty exciting.
I'd like to step in at this point. How I joined the group was a Thursday night prayer meeting, which I wasn't going to attend because I had some muscle spasms in my back, but I decided to go anyways. And as I went there, the message was definitely directed to me that night. I needed to hear that. But the pastor offhandedly said at the end of the prayer meeting something about passing out the great controversy in Washington, and I just piped up and said, I want to go. Okay, well, by the time I got home, now the prayer meeting's over at 7, 8 o'clock I'm on my messages, and I seen that I got penciled in for a room, an office room, which I had to bring my own mattress. I'm fine with that, my own bedding. So I hadn't even mentioned to my husband that I was going yet. But I wanted to go because the Great Controversy book is how I came to the church. And so it meant a lot for me to be able to go pass this out. Now, we had done a event prior in Houghton Lake where we passed out 500 controversies throughout the little, sections of the neighborhood. But it means a lot for me to be able to give this book into other people's hands because it brought me to Jesus. And so, you'll hear more in the story, and I have a update that these guys haven't even heard yet towards the end of this testimony. So as we got to the hotel, or the BRB, I'm ready to blow up my air mattress in this office space that they had available for me. And there's a note on the counter in the kitchen. It says, Karina, 3rd floor with Marjorie. Okay, so now we have to lug our luggage 3rd floor. It's 1:30 in the morning. People are sleeping, but people are coming in throughout the night because they're arriving from all over, Alabama, Georgia, Florida. They're coming from all over to Washington to help pass out these great controversies. So we're going upstairs, and I open up the door where I think my room is, and there's an empty bed, and there's one that's occupied, and there's space for a mattress. And I'm debating, I don't think I want to wake anybody up by trying to blow up this air mattress, so I just slept on the bed. And if I figured if anybody would need the bed, then I would just let them have the bed. So now your story.
Yeah. And so a similar thing happened to us. We were told that we were sleeping on the couches, which was fine. And then pastor was like, well, there's beds upstairs. You might as well go sleep in the beds upstairs. So me and my brother, we go upstairs, and we get our pillows, and we get everything ready to go to bed. I brush my teeth and everything. And I get this big king-size bed all to myself, and I'm like, wow, this is really nice. And something kind of seemed a little weird about that. And then about 3:30 in the morning, everyone shows up, and they're like, there's 2 kids sleeping in our beds. And so we got kicked back out down to the couches, which was okay, but I got about 2.5 hours in a really nice bed, so I was really blessed to have that. And then I just went downstairs and went back to sleep. And then that kind of leads us to the next morning. This right here is the Great Controversy. This is the cover of what we were handing out, thousands of these books. And you can see the Capitol there. And it was cool to hand it out in Washington, D.C. because people would look at the cover and they're like, wow, this book's really interesting without even reading the inside. And so it was cool to have that cover because if it was just some plain cover, we wouldn't have been able to hand out nearly as many. So that's really cool.
So right here we're going to get into the next day. This is the day before the inauguration, but we were still hoping to get some books passed out because that day actually there was a Trump rally. So we were thinking obviously we're going to be able to get some books passed out there. So that was kind of the plan for that day. And we'll get into some pictures here. This is the place where we were staying in Maryland. So that's where we were set up, and from there we all loaded up in the van.
How many were there of us there? Do you remember? 22 people in
Yeah,
that place.
it
And that was
was loaded
one
up.
of 3, right? Airbnbs, I think, that they had. So we were 1/3 of the force. There was more coming later.
Yeah.
So we were going there to pass out 40,000 Great Controversy books. That was the goal. And
Part of it was because, they're going to have the inauguration there, and there's going to be on the mall where there's up to 700,000 people going to be attending. So, 40,000 Great Controversies is probably about a right, so. But then there was, of course, the change. No, we're not doing the Capitol Mall. We're going to do the Capitol Rotunda, which is very limited. And he's going to go to do a rally at the Capitol One, which is a 20,000-foot seater. And you have like 40, 50, 60,000 people lining up to try and get into that place. So we didn't need 40,000 Great Controversies, but we were able to do something with what we had.
So this is really the scene driving into D.C. We were able to get some pictures. It's obviously it was a big day, so you had a huge. There's the Capitol in the background. We shot from the car, and then it's a big day, so a huge security presence everywhere. Streets blocked off. They're shuffling traffic around constantly, and yeah, our mission today was first thing we had to do was find parking, which is certainly a challenge in D.C. the day before the inauguration. But I'll probably let Pastor describe our parking. This is trips. Me and my brother, we took off after a while. We went around D.C. obviously, just to see it. Pastor Bob was kind enough to let us take some time off.
I said, get out of here, guys. I don't want to see you. We got too many people helping right now. Go see
Right.
DC, get the experience, and see what
Right.
God's done for a great country.
And this is your view from the Washington Monument, obviously looking back over. And then we're going to get into that night of the book distribution. But I don't know if anyone has anything to add about that.
Yeah, I can say something about the parking. So, I've been to like Detroit, and you know, with big cities, you got to pay for parking, and it's much different than small towns where, you know, there's abundant parking. That's not the case in DC, especially with the inauguration. Everything was just packed, and so we were having a little bit of trouble. But we said a prayer, and you know, I was kind of just scanning the area down and back for the streets, and all of a sudden I see a parking sign, and it's kind of a lot that goes both ways. And so we go in there. I'm like, hey, Bob, let's just go see if there's any parking there, you know. And
We'd already gone to one place that we said, hey, go check that out. We think they got a good parking there. Full, you know.
yeah,
Lots of them just full. So
yep.
we're praying for a place now.
Yeah, so, you know, like Pastor said, it's hard and challenging, but we pull into this parking garage, you could call it, and, you know, there's just cars stacked each way. But all the way to the right side, there's, you know, there's two lots that are compact for compact cars, so that won't work for our van. But then there's one just right there, and well, now we have to see, well, what's the price of the parking? So we go and scan this QR code, and it tells us that it's, what was it, $20? So that's affordable, you know, and we probably weren't going to find very much better prices. So we credit to his amazing driving skills. I wouldn't have been able to do it. We get right in there, and we get ready to go. We grab our lunches, and we head to the hotel, which we will get into.
So the Lord blessed this trip from the get-go. Originally, the 40,000 Great Controversy books were unloaded off of pallets that were loaded onto 9 U-Haul vans, rented U-Haul vans. And they had to unload all these books into a room. Then we actually had 3 rooms. But before we got the rooms, the original plan was that these pallets would be unloaded at different locations in town, and they would have had to been guarded overnight through the 23 and 10-degree temperatures and the rain and the snow that was forecast. And we would have needed to have volunteers to guard those pallets of books, whatever location they were at, throughout the night, and to try and keep warm while doing it and keep the books dry. God blessed, because at this hotel, where they had previously thought there were no rooms available, all of a sudden 3 rooms became available. So they were able to unload all these boxes of books into 3 hotel rooms, which didn't require overnight guarding. It kept the books dry. It allowed the volunteers a place to go get warm, to eat their lunch in a warm place, to use the bathrooms and not all the porta potties that were out and about. So the Lord really blessed us with providing 3 rooms.
So one of the things probably to mention is somebody called up to get a hotel reservation before we had called, and they were standing there, and they said, no, we're sorry, we don't have any rooms, right? There's no rooms, so we're full. And then here we come. Oh, well, okay, yeah, we got 3 rooms for you, right? You know, and we're going to give them to you for a half price because you're not going to actually be sleeping in them, so we don't have to do, maid service to do whatever. So we'll give them to you at half price, when it was at a premium, because the Arlo was right near where the Trump people started coming through. It's right near there. So it's another example how the Lord opened the door for us, gave us the price at half price, and gave us 3 rooms that weren't initially there for people in front of us.
That was a little bit more complex. We had these wagons, pretty heavy-duty wagons, but even the most built wagons, once you get them loaded up with hundreds of pounds of books, they're very hard to move. So you gotta be careful going through the hallways, obviously, not to run over people. And you're trying to cram as many of these wagons as you can in an elevator, while also trying not to inconvenience people trying to get out. So that's how we got all however many pallets
40,000
of books
books up there.
Yeah, 40,000 books we had to get upstairs, and we're coming through with these wagons with hundreds of pounds of books.
In a classy hotel.
Yes.
Really classy.
Where they're holding a GOP fundraiser event that same night.
$16,000 a ticket to 16 for that one.
Yeah.
So
And this is sort of, so that night, it was, we had rain in the forecast. So what we were trying to do was get the books in plastic bags so we could have them waterproof and still go up and down the streets distributing the books after the Trump rally got out. So this was sort of the mission in there. We were all bagging books. And that woman you see right front and center, she was, how old was she? 87, and she came down all the way to, up or down all the way to D.C. to help us distribute the Great Controversy. It was inspiring almost. It was incredible, everyone that came out to help. And then here, this is when we walk out in the street, we got maybe 2 or 3 wagons behind us. And everyone you see in the green vest for the most part was with us. And a funny thing about that, if you're wearing an official looking neon green vest, people actually think you're a part of the event, and they'll be asking you, oh, which way is this, which way is that. So we had plenty of interactions like that. And then this is the section of the road they had all blocked off because of the Trump rally. So the only people that were allowed in and out, you might be able to see the barricades in the back. Only people allowed in and out were those with either the security clearances or, like we are, if you were staying in the hotel room. So that's another way where the blessing came in, because we had a staging ground. It wasn't crowded. But eventually, here we are. We're approaching the barricades. This is when we actually get out to where the public are allowed. But right there, those are the wagons we were talking about, where we got them loaded up with all the books bagged in the plastic. And we were going up and down the streets, obviously handing them out that night. And here you see, this is here.
Yeah, so I believe this is the spot where we found a bookstore, actually. It's right here. So this building behind us was an actual bookstore. So we thought, well, we're handing out books, so that makes a lot of sense. So we staged right behind here, and this was kind of a street where they were setting up fences and barricades. And all of a sudden, a bunch of workers who were setting up these barricades came along. And I was like, well, they're working, and I saw that some of them had backpacks. So I came over there with a bunch of books, and I said, hey, you guys want some free books? Look at this amazing cover. And I was, doing my salesman techniques, and it worked. And once one of the workers grabbed it, all the workers wanted one. And so it was really cool, and since a couple of them had backpacks, they could still work and then, carry their backpack, because they had these, most of them were just on foot, but some of them had little 4x4 that they could carry things in, so that was pretty cool. Now we go on to Monday, January 20th.
So just real quick, there's a reason why we had to package them up, because actually it rained, it hailed. I don't know if it snowed or not, but it was sleeting on us while we're out there. So we were going through all the tests of the weather while we were there, which was pretty interesting. And it was pretty chipper, I got to tell you. But God was good with us through it all. We're grateful.
Yeah. So parking. Oh, well, yeah. So this is actually the inauguration day. So we were even more concerned about parking that day specifically. So we got out at 8:30, 8 o'clock, and we were driving through D.C. and hopefully we're going to be able to find some parking. And this is the day when the parking situation actually got even more interesting, if you could believe it. So we pull into that same garage, and right away we don't see any open spaces. And we went down the same way we did before. There was nothing. And Cole actually recommended that we should just back up all the way, see what we can find. And right in the corner, you have a little tiny spot, and half of it's blocked off by a pillar, or almost a quarter of the space is there's a pillar supporting the building, obviously. So I didn't think we were going to be able to get in there, but luckily we have our pastor's driving skills that came in handy here.
I didn't think we were going to get in there either, just for the record.
Right. So he had us backed up almost as far as we could go to the side, and we managed to somehow squeeze our way in there with very little room. And one of us had the idea, maybe we should get out, make sure he doesn't back into anything, and that actually didn't come to pass. So we did end up, his bumper did take a little chip from an air conditioning unit they had hanging out of the unit as we were backing up. But
It
besides
was
that,
above my camera. My camera looks down low, my rear camera, so I didn't see it. It was above it, so I heard that sound go, oh.
But this was twice now that the Lord blessed us with a parking space within 2 blocks of the Arlo Hotel. So we didn't have to walk
Pretty amazing.
very far to get to our staging grounds.
yeah, and so we're gonna get into the pictures right here of the. This is we go up to the Arlo, we get situated with everything, drop our lunches off, and then we come down the elevators with the wagons once again, loaded with books on inauguration day. So it's definitely more than it was yesterday.
It was 23 degrees out, and then the wind chill brought it down to 10.
Yes.
No
No rain,
rain,
no
the
snow,
sky
yeah.
was blue. We were praising Lord for that.
And I got lucky too, because I actually left my hat somewhere the other day, and I was able to find a hat, so it was a blessing. And then coming through here, we obviously had to go through a bunch of security clearances to get in and out, and my brother will tell you more about that in a second.
Go back one more slide. See all those fences up there? They had blocks of them. You might have 2 or 3 blocks in a row, and they got those fences all the way down. And those, you can see the white building there, that tarp, whatever. You can get your car through there if you got clearance. And of course, they got scanners of all sorts, and they got machine gun guys there, and they got sniffing dogs there, all that stuff. There was no fooling around in Washington, D.C. on this day. Boy, they were totally out in mass. They had the Army out. They had all the police officers, the sheriff's officers for counties around. It was a full house of safety, believe me. It was a packed house. So trying to move around in there, you had to have security clearance. Otherwise, you're not going to go too far.
So something very interesting to me was the amount of people selling Trump apparel, Trump flags, Trump bumper stickers, teddy bears, everything. Anything Trump related, they were selling, and there was 2 or 3 of these guys on each block. Some of them were larger setups, and I just could not believe the amount of people trying to get people at the rallies and people in D.C. to buy most of the stuff poorly made and overpriced. And what was very interesting about it was, as the day went on, the prices got much cheaper, and they were going $5 for a whole sweatshirt or whatever. But when we got there, it was like ridiculous prices. Yeah.
$50 was one of them, and they had to keep dropping it.
Yeah, so they just kept dropping it. And what was interesting was, well, if all these guys are handing out items, what I did was I would take a box of 50 books at a time, and I would go and give the books, 10, 15 copies to each of these salesmen, and I said, hey, when you're selling someone something, you can give them a free book as well. And that was kind of a technique to have more people that were not a part of our group pass out the books for us, and it really worked well. And so that was a way. And then I'd go back and talk to these guys, and they're like, yeah, people are just grabbing these books, and they like it because of the cover. And they always kept mentioning the cover, which was really cool to hear. So that was a way that that was an approach I used to get more books in people's hands.
I was a little skeptical, I must confess, when I heard that. I said, oh, check this out. So I went just to see, and I saw a vendor out there, hey, buy this, this, and we got a free book to go in with it as well. And a little later he goes, yeah, if you don't buy anything, we got a free book for you. So, then you would come there to get the book, and then try and get you on the other part. But they were actively promoting the book, big time. Buy this,
It was
free, and it's like, man, these guys are better than we are almost. So it was amazing.
It was incredible. Oh yeah, they were going quickly, and I was also a little skeptical first, but then I hear Bob brought up something about it. He's like, you see the vendors? Some of them are handing out our books, guys. And I'm like, and I knew it was working.
Amazing.
And this is interesting too. This was sort of almost like parting the Red Sea of sorts, because we had to go down this very narrow street with wagons full of hundreds of pounds of books and hopefully not run over anyone's feet. And God bless Karina, because she was clearing it the entire way. Watch your feet, watch your step. Careful where you walk. So if you
I was telling people, we're coming through with a wagon of books. Watch your feet. You're going to get run over. It hurts. Move over. Watch your feet, please. And they parted because they
Yeah.
were all, we were going against traffic.
Yeah.
They were coming this way to get through the fencing area to line up to go into the arena. And so you're having 4 and 5 people wide trying to get past each other, scrambling to get ahead of each other, and we're going against all that, pushing these wagons.
I got to tell you, those people are motivated coming out for the Trump rallies. I mean, they're all coming this way because they got to get there to get over to the Capitol One, and they want to get into Capitol One. So here comes a sea of faces moving right against you, and you're like, I'm going to try and go through that. But the easiest way is get Karina on the front side. Excuse me, please, move over, please. Watch out, we're coming through. And you know what? There was 2 wagons. I was the second wagon. I just learned that you just line up behind Karina, and she'll plow through, and you get the free ride benefits. So.
Right, she'll keep us safe. And then this is just to give you an idea of the crowds. You had people from miles stretching around blocks to try and get into the Capital One Arena, even though it only seated, I think 20,000 was the capacity. So it was, for a lot of people, it was sort of a hopeless venture. But this is just the amount of support you had out there.
So we
There you
were
go.
not allowed to actually give out books to these people because we were told that when they get into the end where they will be scanned to go into the arena, they wouldn't be allowed to bring any bags or books or anything with them. So they kind of discouraged us giving them the books because they would be discarded. On the way out. So we had to get in spot for them to come out. But we did, those that weren't actually going into the arena, that were just, tourists and just walking on the side streets, we were able to pass out books to them.
So we had a little bit mixed messaging. Some say it will go through, others say it won't go through. So I think some of them were passing it out anyway to those who went through, and we heard that it did go through, so they could take it into the arena and go through
really?
because they could see that it's just a book, so it went. But look at the sea of faces here. Honestly, there's people here from pretty much just about every country in the world coming through. I mean, incredible. People from all over the world are coming to try and catch a Trump rally, the inauguration. And when we talked to them, why are you coming? One of them said, well, because we're seeing that America is going to become a Christian nation once again. And we hope that what happens in America with Trump may happen to our country in Europe. We're really wanting to get back to God as a country, as a people. We're looking for this. We want this. So Karina actually introduced me to somebody from Brazil. Her son is a politician. He was there doing some interviewing and stuff like that. But we got to talking, and she was interested, but she was also concerned that it might go too far to the right. And we talked about this, and you have got to read this book because this book explains all of that and how it's going to all shake down. So she took it gladly, and I kind of wish I could hear back from her what her thoughts are. But anyway, so it was wonderful, and these people largely are religious. Largely, there's a religious spin to them of some sort. Some of them are principally Trump supporters. Some of them are principally Christians, but they support Trump because they believe he's the ticket to get Christianity back in America again. But there's a large amount of Christianity here among the people coming through from all over the world. It's kind of fascinating. It was a very unique experience.
Yeah, just people from all over, and this is more the view you see a lot of. This is Chinatown, where we had people walking through and we were handing out books here.
See that barrier and see all those people they had to go through this gate and that, and they zigzagged through. I mean, they went for a mile. Somebody said that they were in line for 4.5 hours, hoping to get in, right? I don't think they did because they only took 20,000 in. But they were hoping to get in. So, and this went for long blocks and blocks and blocks, right close by our hotel.
And then, obviously, there's a huge presence of all different sorts of medias from all around the world. So you see the news cameras, obviously, and you had stuff like this on every block almost. And coming up, this was an interesting thing I experienced where when we were taking the carts through and Karina's clearing the way, I was actually at the end. So by the time they got the carts past, this almost like mob of people rushes through, and they form a giant circle, locked arms, blocking the street. And that guy in the middle, he was surrounded by the circle, and I was able to get my camera in there. but he was reading something off. He was there to protest Donald Trump. None of them were fans. They were shouting about fascism and everything. And so I had to wait there for a good 5 or 10 minutes. And Cole actually called me. He's like, "Hey, are you all right? Where'd you go?" And I was still waiting behind these guys, waiting because they wouldn't move. They were locked arms, and they didn't go until they were finished. And these are some of the signs we saw. Pastor, you want to say something about these?
Well, we weren't the only Christian group out there. There were some other people there. But look at this. President Trump, repent and remember Nebuchadnezzar, right? Nebuchadnezzar was humbled and 7 years made whatever. Christ will make a full end of all the nations. So I think you got next slide is also got. Repent and believe the gospel. Jesus is Lord. Jesus rescues from the coming wrath. So these guys here were really hellfire and brimstone, God's anger against sin. You know, it wasn't a message of love and a call and an invitation to accept Christ and accept the love that he offers, the gift that he gives in love. It wasn't that at all. It kind of came across to me as like wrath and God is angry, and you need to appease God. We need to get back on our knees and humble ourselves and repent, and so that God can bless us again. It's like it's not a religion that appeals to people because it's man, it was bad. Karina, tell them what happened.
So we had a group of these guys set up in front of the Arlo, and I told the pastor, we're looking out the window, and like, oh, they're preaching the gospel, and we should give them a book. So we all had gone out there, and I tried to give them a book, and the man, he's got his microphone and big speakers, and he started saying, "Do not take these books from the Seventh-day Adventists. You will go to hell." He says, these are sinners, they teach lies, and just went on and on and on. And we were told, just step back. He does this at all the rallies, and he's just not a very nice man. So we just, obviously, Jesus said, by their fruits you will know them. So we just stepped back and, let him do his thing.
So
we continued.
Karina gave a book to one of them, and then when they said, these are Seventh-day Adventists, they're going to teach you're going to go to hell if you don't keep the Sabbath and whatever. And so then he took their great controversy book and he threw it on the ground like that, another disgust, just like, Adventists, no, don't take this book. So I think Karina went over there and picked it up, just to show respect for the book, whatever. But that was kind of an interesting experience. So.
Yeah, so right here you can see more security, and the National Guard was there, and just about anyone who they deemed was needed to keep the peace was there, and keep everything orderly. So this, I think, in an area there's a check zone where I was tasked with, once the carts were emptied, I'd have to take them back to the hotel and refill and restock the books. So me and my brother, we did several rounds back and forth to the hotel getting more books. And every time we had to do that, we had to make sure that we had our room key, and we would show the security the room key, and then me and my brother would have to, make sure we didn't have anything on us, let us go through. And then when we came back, we did the same thing. So that just kind of shows you how serious this was, the inauguration, and how they were making sure absolutely nothing was getting through. And it took 45 minutes to go back to the hotel and back, and it was a big deal. So yeah.
Obviously right here, the people Pastor was mentioning were these people holding the sign with the verses, and that if you see, he's got a megaphone in his hand, and they'd be shouting either what's on their sign or what's on their mind. And it was a little chaotic, and it was very loud, so but we made it through. And this is the street we were obviously bringing all the books down, and those are probably some of the vendors that were helping distribute our books. More military presence. These were the huge Trump vendors my brother was talking about that he maybe would give a pallet of books to almost, and they distribute them obviously, and that was a huge blessing. But yeah, as you go on, there's people like this every block, 5 or 6 of them, not all stationary. A lot of them are wheeling around these carts full of Trump merchandise, and they got, they try and sell you $5 a hat, $5 this, and right here you had, obviously, like Pastor mentioned, a lot of Christian protests, and this was a man I actually talked to maybe 10 or 15 minutes, and he was his message was sort of obviously similar to a lot of Christian message. It's no abortion, same-sex marriage, and just he was out there. He had his sign, and I talked to him a little bit. He was actually he wasn't one of the ones who was sort of bitter towards the other denominations, or he actually read The Great Controversy, and I discussed it with him for a fair, but he wasn't a Seventh-day Adventist, but he said there was tremendous value in that book. So that was interesting. Just to have other people, obviously, like the other people Pastor mentioned, who completely shunned anything to do with the Seventh-day Adventists. And you have a person like this who's perfectly capable of getting along with others. And then so that's actually one of our people. That's sort of the scene on every block almost, where we have, because we had, I don't know, maybe 100 people out that day. We'd give them books, they'd set up, they'd distribute them, and it was just, it was wonderful. And here's Karina, and I don't know if you want to share about.
So at this location, we had a lady that had done other rallies, but she had gone down to have some lunch at one of the restaurants, and so she could eat her salad inside. And there was a Starbucks next door, and she actually went inside the Starbucks to get herself something hot to drink, and the manager donated drinks for all of us that were on that corner and gave us hot soy milk, which was a blessing, another blessing from God. Here we are in 23-degree temperatures, and she shows up with this hot drink, which was so nice. The Lord provides, and I was just so grateful. But so the pastor had to take a picture of us passing out the controversy. And this here, the day, so we came home Monday. Tuesday morning, I'm on YouTube, and I came across the channel that said, behind the scenes at the most bizarre inauguration in history. So I thought, well, I'm going to watch what this said, because one of the scenes at the very end, where you first get to check to get into the arena, they made you drop all your bags, all your purses. They had Gucci bags, they had Michael Kors bags, they had Coach purses in a huge trash pile. And you weren't allowed to bring bags in. So that caught my eye, and I'm like, I was at that spot. So I watched through the video, and right in the center, underneath that white canopy, that person in yellow is me. So I actually showed up in a YouTube video, passing out books right there. So, and that's the title of the YouTube video, which is, I thought it was kind of neat that I, happened to be there. So go ahead, what else we got? Okay. Some more of the protesters and vendors that are passing out Great Controversy books.
Yeah, they wheel these carts around, just all around, wherever the most people are, and they're just trying to get you to buy either a hat. One thing I thought was interesting is they had both, they had Trump hats, not just from 2024, but they had Trump 2020 and then 2016 as well. So a lot of them were just trying to unload old merchandise as well, so it wasn't their first time.
Yeah, so in DC, you see a lot of unusual things. This is a protester, which was really kind of weird. So she was protesting clean earth is not a unicorn fantasy, which it's an interesting technique to try to get your point across. But yeah, it appears that she self-knitted the face mask there, which is interesting. And then when she turned the corner, I was like, where am I? This is not Grayling, Michigan, or Mayo for that matter. And yeah, so we saw a lot of different factions, you could call them. And for me and my testimonies, you would come across people and you say, you want a book? And they would be fellow Christians. And I would talk to them for a while, and they would say why they're here and why this is such an important day and all that. So I would talk to a lot of them, and then I'd hand them a book, and then they'd say, can I have 3 or 4 for my friends? And I'd give them 5 or 6. And that was really cool. I came across a lot of people who didn't know much about the book, so I would explain it to them for, a minute or two. And that was when it was much slower paced. There was not as many people coming through, so you could have better conversations, which was really good. And it was a dad and a son, and he came over and he said, son, would you like to know about this book? And this was interesting. And I told his son about it. And then, without saying anything else, they just walked away. So you would have that as well. You can only, some people just do not want anything to do with it. And so that was hard, but, that would happen, and then you'd find 5 others that would really enjoy and want the book. So that was really cool.
But yeah, nothing less, the crocheting the unicorn mask is certainly impressive. I don't know a lot of people who have that much dedication. But and this was another thing that I took note of. Because as people, they try and get DC to clean up the homeless population as much as they can around inauguration. But as people start to leave, you start to see these people. I don't know where they were keeping them, but they shuffle back out. They set up again, and it's almost like a transformation over a little bit. And then this was a guy I also met. He was there singing, trying to make a buck. And I was surprised at the quality of his singing, just to say. And he was singing YMCA, all the favorite Trump hits. So that was definitely interesting. And then I think this is our final slide. This is a shot I sort of just got because I thought it was pretty cool. He wasn't even asking for money or anything. He was just out there playing. I thought that was really interesting. But I think from here we can kind of wrap up.
Too. So I was trying to get my way back, and it's kind of hard because I started to go this way, and then it's blocked off for 3 blocks, right? So then I had to go this way, and that's blocked off, and so I was trying to find my way back. And anyway, in that process, and I didn't have any books with me, I see a bunch of police officers over here heading where I'm at. And I get there, and I realize that they're tracking and trailing the Proud Boys. There was like 50 or 60 Proud Boys, and I don't know if you remember the Proud Boys. They played a significant part on the January 6th event that took place when Trump didn't win the presidency. But they were out there too, So you got all these people coming from all over the United States, all over the world, coming in to demonstrate or protest or support the rally or whatever it was. It was a great opportunity to share faith. Karina's going to wrap up with a story that's going to really excite you.
Well, okay, so I'm just going to go over some of the notes that I had. So when you're passing out some of the books, how we would do it was free book, would you like a free book? Free book. And so we would go on and say, free book, would you like a free book? And a lot of the responses were no thanks. They would shake their heads. Some of them would just totally ignore you and walk past. And then there were some that said thank you, and they would accept the book, or I already have one, because there were other vendors, obviously, that had already passed, and other, evidence that were passing them out. Or I have it at home already, and I've already read it. Or some were even, can I get another one? Those were exciting when you got those responses. I got cussed at one time, and the bystanders were, well, that was rude, that was uncalled for, and they gave her what for, and I just ignored her and kept on. You expect that. And then you had those that were asking before they would take the book, even though you offer them something free, they were like, what's this book about? So we were told that don't get into conversations with people because you have to keep the crowd moving. You don't want to collect a bunch of people like that protester did. You want to keep them moving so you're able to pass out books. So the quick responses would be freedom of religion, separation of church and state, history of the church, prophecy. So those were quick, answers that you could give people as they were handed the book and would pass on by. There was one gentleman, his name was Matthew, and I had to look up to him. Now, my husband is 6'4", so I'm used to looking up, right? This guy was a little bit taller, I think. His name was Matthew, and he came up to me and he says, I don't need the book. He says, I just want you to know that I read the book a long time ago and it changed my life. I used to be an atheist. So it just warms your heart, that he said, I don't need the book. He says, I'm not a Seventh-day Adventist, but I want you to know that book changed my life. See? And so there were other people. There was another gentleman where you saw me in that video scene on that corner where I spoke with him at great length about the book. Like I said, the book changed my life. But this gentleman, I can't remember his name, was into church history. So he was excited, to learn more about it and to take the book. And I told people, read the book. If you have questions, Google it. Write it on your phone. You can investigate and do research on your own to find the truth. So there were people from all over the world, as the pastor said. I spoke with people. There were other Christians. We talked about that. So we talked about all the blessings. I want to read on my phone. One of my roommate, Marjorie, as I said, when I got upstairs to my third bedroom, and I didn't have to use the air mattress because that bed actually was empty and provided for me, so I slept in a bed for the whole 2 days that we were there. She sent something on Facebook that I wanted to share, and the pastor just heard about it this morning. And I took screenshots of it in case I didn't have. Let me see. I gotta find it. I just got a new phone Tuesday. So I want to read this to you guys. This is in response. Now, we had 40,000 books that we were supposed to pass out. We were only able to pass out 11,200, but that in itself was a great blessing, okay? So this person wrote, "Dear Saints," and he's in charge, and you'll hear. "Things are moving at lightning speed following the inauguration. Cabinet positions are being filled, corruption exposed, and criminal invaders taken off our streets. The rule of law is being resurrected and crooked practices exposed. But most importantly, results are beginning to happen from the distribution of the 11,200 Great Controversy books given away at the 25th presidential inauguration. I got a surprise call this morning from the spearhead of the free book distribution, Ron Goss, Project Restore, relating the following. It seems Martha received a Great Controversy sometime during the inauguration weekend and just completed reading it. She was so impressed that she went to the trouble of looking up the publisher, Remlin Publication, in Coldwater, Michigan, purchasing 510 copies, which is 5 cases, and paying for their shipping, which came to $1,000 total. She wants all her friends and family to read what she has just discovered. Folks, that's a 510% return from one single book falling on fertile soil. Powerful book, powerful cover. So, volunteers, contributors, organizers, all who sacrificed in the brutal cold inauguration, twice hauled 40,000 books up and down the bank of hotel elevators, piled them in 3 rooms, take them back down to the streets again, return the leftover 29,800 books up the elevators and back into the rooms, and then again haul them down the same elevators, load into cargo vans, and finally repalletize them at the freight terminal, then drive hundreds of miles home. This is payday. The list could go on for the sacrifices made by 150 plus volunteers of Martha's book. Thanks. Praise the Lord. Was it worth it? Who gave the book? Was it you? Was it you or you? Was it me? Was it any of the other 150? Was it a vendor? Who gave the book? By God's grace, we all did. So, and this is just the tip. The rest of the story remains to be told. So while others are groveling over church politics and issues, by God's grace, we are giving the final warning. Do what you must do, but very soon it will be forever too late. Obtain copies of the Great Controversy and become an instant evangelist by passing them out. Who knows, the soul you save may be your own, even if you have to do it by yourself. Start now to reserve space at a local county or state fair. Other larger events will be happening soon too, as Evangelical America forms. We will be there. Encourage your local church to engage. Who knows, your spark could ignite 510 more Marthas. Don Reed. So, like I said, the great controversy is how I came to the church, and I picked it up at a flea market. A Seventh-day Adventist booth had set up at the Irons Ox Roast and Flea Market in Baldwin, Michigan. They have a festival every year, and I picked up the great controversy amongst other literature. And the cover wasn't much different from the one that you see now, except the title said, "The Great Controversy, A Storm is Coming." And that was in 2014. And so I'm almost 11 years into being baptized Seventh-day Adventist. but yes, it's the seed. So.
And I can talk quickly about the way back home, and it was very interesting because me and my brother Chandler had to, bye, Pastor. Thank you so much, guys.
God bless.
Safe travels out there. And I can keep talking for a little bit. Pretty much what happened is Pastor and Karina was going to go get the van for us. And me and my brother, we had stuff at the hotel that we had to get. So me and him went back there. And all of a sudden, my brother goes, "Where's my phone?" And you know what happens when you lose your phone. You kind of, especially in D.C., because he could have set it down on 8th Street, and you would have never known. You probably would never find it. So we travel back to the hotel, and, we're like, okay, I talked to my brother, "Where were you?" Check the hotel room and all that. And, yeah,
I checked the hotel room, and it wasn't there, and this is where I started to get really worried. And then I was on my way back down the elevator because I thought I'll go check the restroom. Maybe I left it in there at some point. And I knock on the restroom I had used previously, and I hear in the restroom, did you lose a phone? And it was one of the people who was helping distribute books that day who happened to go into that restroom and see my phone. And he said he was just about to go turn it into the front desk to their lost and found. But I had come there just in time. So that was just another huge blessing. I talked to him, I gave him a hug, and then we were on our way home.
Yeah, so we grab the phone, and we get out to the out of the hotel, and Pastor says, "Okay, go to," I think it was like A Street or something, and we have no clue where we're going, and we have to find the van. So we see the van and Pastor just in the middle of the street, and it's a busy road. And so we just run across the street to get to him, because who knows if we would have been able to. And God just directed our eyes to him, and we found him. And that got us back on the road home. And Pastor drove to about Pittsburgh, and I took over at Pittsburgh. And what's cool is when you're going back home, you don't actually have to go through Pittsburgh again. So the toll road takes you outside of there. And then all of a sudden in my head, I was like, "Dude, can I drive from Pittsburgh to Grayling, Michigan?" And for some reason, I wanted to do that. I don't really know why. So I start driving. We stop for gas for, I believe, 2 or 3 times. And everyone's sleeping in the back, and I just keeping my eyes on the road. And we get through Pittsburgh, and we're in Ohio now. And all of a sudden, it starts snowing hard. Probably just about as hard as it is right now if it is snowing out. And I can hardly see the road and all this. And all of a sudden, it really starts coming down. And so, I slow down a little bit. And then these 2 trucks are in front of me. And you know what happens when you get behind a car? You start getting their tire snow. And I didn't want that to happen. So I passed them. And then in the rear mirror, I see that both of them go right off the road. And one of them hits the other one, and they both collide off into the road. And if I would have stayed behind those cars, those 2 trucks, we would have been done for. And we don't know if we even would have survived, because I saw, and they both went off, and it was awful. And, in my head, I was like, "Jesus, hopefully they're okay," and pray, and all that. So, and then we keep going, and we stop for gas, and I got some water and some fresh air, and I was like, all right, I can do this. and I get to all the way to Michigan, and then all the way up, and I'm like, oh, I'm almost to Grayling, and at this point it was 4 o'clock in the morning, maybe, and I was just out of it. You know, I drove 8 hours straight, and so we get to West Branch, and I'm like, all right, Pastor, it's time for you to take over, because I was just not feeling good. Like, I was just feeling dizzy, and, you know. So I almost made it to Grayling, but I'll take Pittsburgh to West Branch is pretty good. And that kind of solves up our trip. We get back home, and I go right to sleep because, you know, I'm a college student, and so is my brother's in high school, and, you know, we need our sleep.
I planned on going to school the next day, so 3 hours, but thankfully, another blessing, we had a snow day the very next day because they were closed due to,
Yep.
you know, it was minus 15.
Yeah, and I had a snow day as well, so we were able to sleep in,
Yeah.
which was really nice because we needed it. And then we brought 50 books with us back home, and so we're hoping to spread those at my college. So that's going to be really exciting. But yeah, it was a great time. I had a lot of fun meeting new people, and I stayed up until about 12 o'clock one night talking to an Adventist from Florida when we were at the Airbnb, and his insight on everything was really great. And you know, I like to learn more and more about everything. So yeah, that's pretty much all we have to say.
It was a tremendous trip all the way there and back, and the amount of blessings we had from getting those hotel rooms at half price when they previously said they didn't have any, the parking, obviously everyone being safe, and in the end, I guess, be finding my phone. There's so much more to share, and if we had time, we certainly would, but I guess from now, is it closing hymn?
Yes.